Yeah, sleep. Why is a lack of sleep hurting your code? Yeah, I want to know that too. Give me like 5 minutes. No, I'm just messing around. But let's be serious. Success comes from a lot of late nights, caffeine fueled benders, right? Wrong. Learn why skimping on sleep is a death sentence for a developer, especially their productivity. And how can you maximize your coding potential? We're going to talk about a couple of those today in regards to sleep. First, I want to talk a little bit about a story from the past. When I was learning the Pomodoro technique from my mentor, John Sonmez, I used to pride myself coming back to sessions with him and, telling him about how he told me to shoot for 10 to 12 and I would hit 16 or even up to 20. And I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm killing it over here and I'm doing amazing things. And I'm just burning the midnight oil and killing it. And he would kind of warn me and go, hey, what goes up will come down. I strongly advise you to go back to 12. Don't do the 16 to 20 stuff. It will not work in the end. And I found out rather quickly he was exactly right. And I came crashing down. Maybe I could hit, 3 days in a row at 16 in some of my peak states. But then I'd have anywhere from 2 to 4 Pomodoros over the next 3 days in total. Instead of just, even keel 12 across every day, I went from killing it to not killing it and being extremely unmotivated and hurting my code output and just truly not being productive. Now, I say this story because I had to learn what it felt like to fail and how not taking the advice and not paying attention to not only my sleep, but overworking myself, which is probably part of another video. But this part of this video is the sleep part, but it directly affected my Pomodoro output. Because when I started burning that midnight oil, I started losing sleep, and that started hindering everything else, not just the code, but also the output of productivity in other areas of my life during that time. And ultimately, I had to learn how to be efficient and how not to hurt my code, and sleep was one of those big things. And if you're looking for help, not just with sleep, but being a better coder, then I encourage you to reach out and check out what I've created down below, the Coding Career Fastlane, to help accelerate your career wherever you're at in the process. Let's talk about sleep today, though, because it's going to be absolutely key to making sure you're not hurting your code by just this one small thing to fix. And I say small. Let me take that back. This is not small. Sleep is a big deal for everyone. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how it works. First and foremost, there are 4 stages. Stage 1, this is where you have the lightest sleep, when you can easily be awoken, where you feel like you're falling over or suddenly your muscle twitches, those jerks you get when someone on the airplane, you're not getting, but the person on the airplane next to you is just like kicking around, jerking. Yeah, I'm probably culprit of that for sure, but that's stage 1, when you're in that kind of stage. Stage 2 is when your heart rate actually starts to slow and your muscles contract and relax and your body temperature will actually start to decrease and your body is starting to prepare to go into deep sleep. Stage 3 and 4 is now when you've entered the deep sleep phases where your brain waves will actually slow down and become more difficult to wake you up. Last but not least, REM, the rapid eye movement stage. In that stage, it's your heart rate, your breathing, your eye movement all speed up and your brain becomes more active in processing things that you've learned during the day to help your memories and boost your feel-good chemicals, such as there's a name I can't pronounce. But what happens though is you go through your sleep cycles with the deepest ones coming towards the very end of the night. So if you're not actually getting to the very end of your sleep, and I say end anywhere because the national, I forget the name. What they say is anywhere from 79 hours is needed for adults. And if we're not getting to at least that 7-hour mark, then we are not getting towards our deepest sleep, which helps with our memories, which helps boost a lot of mental activity for your brain. So we'll piece actually more of that together. I'm going to leave it there for a second, but that's what we're noticing is that's when our deepest sleep comes. So if you just hit 5 hours, you're not going to get that extra 2 hours, which is probably the most helpful part. We also know this as developers, and a majority of developers think they're night owls. myself included at times. I know it's not exactly true, but I realize that I sometimes think that, and I mistake quietness and, peacefulness and no one bothering me and everyone asleep for actual being a night owl, not just I'm productive because no one's bothering me and there's no one in my ear. When truth be told, we are actually most creative in the morning, because that's not only when we have our most creative thoughts, but it's when our brain is at its peak, right? And when we're at this peak, we have the ability to think forward through everything. You've got a problem, you think about the tests, the debugs, the design, who to ask questions for, potential solutions you might have, or problems that are coming up because you see 10 problems down the road. You can think through all that stuff really easy in the morning. And so we know we're creative. Now, in the morning, that is, when we talk about night, I want you to be wary, because like I said, while working at night, don't take the calmness and the peacefulness for being innovative and super, super productive as a night owl. Because what's going to happen is you can focus on one task is why you're feeling this, not multiple. So when you choose to focus on programming at the end of the night, you're going to be a good programmer, but you're not going to potentially do much else besides just programming. And I mean straight up writing code. I don't mean you're thinking about code, you're thinking about the test, you're thinking about everything else you have to do. You're thinking about this one thing, which does help with not checking the news, not checking the social apps. This is great. But don't, like I said, I think 3 times now, and I'm hoping this message comes across, don't mistake that for being super successful in the night. Now, let's piece this all together. If you miss out on your deep sleep, and we take for granted our morning where we have our most creative capacity, and if we get less sleep, so our window of creativity is even smaller, and we use less time to take in more of our memories and help our brain store that information, well, there is a lot of time you're losing as a developer to be extremely efficient. So what I'm talking about is this. You have that window in the morning, and this is why one of the things I'm going to give advice for in a second is deep work. But you have this window where you're super productive, your brain has just stored a bunch of new memory and filed it for you, and now you're creative, and now what you're able to do in that 3 to 4 hour window in the morning, especially if you rest, is you're able to think through your problems, you're able to do the testing. While you're doing the testing, you're able to write code, think of the styles you need to do, the patterns you're in, the code you're writing, the debugging, future problems, creative solutions. You're able to do all this and have a 10-track mind of doing all these different things at once. But when you're past that window, what we generally see is people have a 1 to 2 track mind. Now, we draw reference before right to the nighttime, but this also goes during the day when people are coding, especially at the end of the day. People have a 1 to 2 track mind. They are doing the coding, or they're doing just testing. They're not doing both, or they're thinking about problems, but they're not coding. And this is what we see, is that by the end of the day, most developers are slowing down because they haven't gotten enough sleep, and they're not using their windows to their advantage. Now, ultimately, right, we know that sleep is going to hurt us. Like, we all know this to be true. But let's talk about some things we can do to help get a little sleep, or things we can help do so that lacking sleep isn't hurting your code. And the first and foremost is going to be anticlimactic. Get 8 hours of sleep. Who would have thought? But at a minimum, try to shoot for 7. If you can get to 7, that's key. Next is turn off the blue light modes when you're trying to get to sleep that night. Turn on the blue light modes, or get blue light glasses. I actually have a pair around here. I don't know where they're at. They're actually really neat. When you see them in the camera, you can see them reflecting back the blue light. Those can be very helpful. One of the ones that I've tried on and off when I'm having troubles to go to sleep is a meditating app like Headspace. It's extremely helpful to really just kind of get past your thoughts and just kind of see them run by. It's really quite an interesting experience. Stay away from alcohol and caffeine in the night. And I realized those 4 tips were all towards sleep. I get that. My main advice to you is to do a deep work block. And I've talked about this in some of the other videos. block off about 3 hours where you can focus, specifically in the morning. Every morning, whether it's work or weekends, 9 to 12 is what I put a block on my life so that I can work creatively on anything I want to. And those are some of my most intensely productive hours of the day, not only because my creativeness is there, but I'm deep blocking, working on stuff, much like it's the nighttime, and taking off all distractions, all emails, all social media, everything, and I am just focusing. Sleep is very important to being a great developer. If you feel like you want help accelerating your career around improving as a coder and improving with things like this, not just coding, but also things that are potentially affecting your code, like sleep, then I encourage you to sign up down below. It's a service I've created to help accelerate you, whether you're beginner or advanced. Sign up down below and let me show you how to build a plan that'll help you join the fast lane. Ultimately, if you have comments, questions, concerns, feel free to leave it down below. Check out the link, email me, or join on for a free 30-minute session. Subscribe, hit like, whatever you see on the page. And until the next one, I'll see you guys all later.